welcome back for our next session of the Responsible Gem Boutique. I'm just going to introduce Ian, and then he has a presentation for you. So this is Ian Bone. He's founder and partner at Capricorn Gems out of Australia. So he's coming to us from Denver, Colorado. And that's all the time I'm going to take. It's over to you, Ian.
Thanks, Andrea. Look, yes, appreciate the opportunity to come and speak with everybody today, the audience, and to tell everybody a little bit about what Capricorn Gems is doing, and perhaps a little bit about the future of where we're going, and perhaps something a little bit about the Ethical Gem Suppliers Group also, just building on some of the remarks that Brian and Haywan made earlier on today. What I'd like to do is to refer you to a publication that was just produced by Ethical Metalsmiths, actually, and it's in the feed there. You will see there's a link to a publication there that was kindly developed with Chloe and myself in an interview, and that document, if you like, or that publication tells you a little bit more about Capricorn Gems, I guess also myself specifically, and how I got involved in this business, and some of my views and thoughts about perhaps the future of what this movement is with regard to responsible sourcing and traceable gemstones. And I'd just invite you to read that, and perhaps we can talk a little bit about, or as this discussion will probably highlight some of those aspects of where I am and what I do, and essentially what our business is. And I'd like to start by just share the screen with Capricorn Gems, because basically our business now has become a fully integrated online business, and I work with designers from all around the world, and I found in the last 18 months that an online presence is basically the most practical way, I suppose, of doing business, but not solely that. Certainly an online business to talk about the products, show the products, but supported with other technologies, particularly such as WhatsApp, where you can communicate with people, or Messenger, where you can have video conversations with people about their requirements, their needs, and moving from there in terms of developing a relationship going forward with designer makers. I can remember 4, 5, 6 years ago when I first started this business, it was very much based on a face-to-face show model arrangement. Of course, 18 months ago or so, that came to an abrupt halt, and we were left pretty much exposed, I suppose, as a business, in not necessarily being able to present our gemstones to the wide world. And it was at that time that the realization came that we just had to get an online presence. So we spent a lot of time over the last 12 months, I think, developing our website to the extent now that it's a pretty comprehensive site. I think we've got around about 1,800, maybe even 2,000 gemstones on that site now for sale. Anyway, let's go to the site first and talk a little bit about the site. I'm going to share my screen here. Just bear with me a little bit, and we'll grab the. I think I got the wrong one. Let's try again. Share screen, window, Chrome tab. Here we go. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the website. What you first get when you come to the website basically is this front page, the first page of the website, and it really illustrates what we do, and it also makes it very clear that we are a wholesale-only business, and it's only designed for designer makers to access our website. We make no apology for that. We are very clear about our business from two fronts. Firstly, that it's a wholesale business selling only to designer makers worldwide and or gemstone vendors, other gemstone vendors. And secondly, there are only 4 gemstones that you'll find on this site. Those 4 gemstones being gemstones located in central Queensland. So those 4 gemstones are sapphire, boulder opal, chrysoprase, and zircon, and they all come from our backyard, basically. So we know the full details of these gemstones, where each is from, who mined the pieces, when they were mined, and the full story behind the gem. So we don't get involved with any other gemstones. Quite often we're approached by others to represent their gems, but we refuse, merely because we are very niche and very focused about the 4 gemstones. Now, the other thing I get some degree of, pushback on is from people who want to log into the website or access the website that aren't designer makers. And I can assure you it's a continual basis for me to review each and every application. So I get each application for access to the site, and I seek verification. Basically, I need proof that the person seeking to access the site is a legitimate designer maker before I will enable access. So we've made that decision very clearly that our business model is based on only doing business with designer makers. And to that extent now, we have a database of maybe 1,500 designer makers worldwide, and they can rest assured that we will only sell our gemstones to them, and we will not go to the retail market. So that's, I think, a matter that designer makers need to take on board, and also that also extends, I should say, into the marketing aspect of the designer makers' work. So should they want to attribute us as Capricorn Gems, they know they can do that without risk of customers, their clients, perhaps coming directly to us and seeking to purchase gemstones. They'll know that that'll never happen. So we're very clear about the business. We're very clear about the gemstones that we sell and market, and we make no apology for that. So any designer maker basically can access that. I'll ask them basically for a copy of their website or their Instagram, just to see that they are legitimate in terms of making their goods, making their pieces, I should say, and using our particular gemstones, and then going to the market and selling those pieces. So that's the first thing that we do, and we think it's important for us and for designer makers to have that assurance that that's what we do. So when you're looking at the site, you'll see across the top of the site here the full breakdown, I suppose, of the pieces we have. In the sapphires, we've got a wide range of various cuts, and just go to a couple here. This is taking us to an introductory page, but basically all the cuts here are listed, and I think we've got about 25 different types of sapphire cuts. We're always producing new and different ones, and for example, we can just pick on one of these, doesn't really matter. Let's go to the free forms, and you will see each of the free forms listed with their prices up, and clicking on that, just get rid of this, clicking on that, that'll take you to that specific piece, the details, a few different images of the piece. These are pretty bi-color, free form, and then a video of the piece. I won't click that, but essentially that's a video of the piece to show the piece. Now, quite often we get requests from designers to say, well, look, I've got a couple of ideas on the piece I want to send to my client. How can I get, perhaps a comparison? Can I get 2 or 3 of your gemstones together? Brilliance maybe of the same size, but maybe different color tones. Absolutely. That's exactly what we do. I'm doing that daily, whereby requests come to me and they say, hey, can, SKU 16254 with 237, whatever, 2 or 3 gems together. So I do that, and I do that via WhatsApp because I find that a very practical way of communicating, sending videos, sending stills, and then basically allowing the client designer, the designer, I should say, to choose maybe which one, or to send that on to their particular client. And in fact, that's what most do. The most take the clip, forward it on to the client, get feedback from the client, come back to me, say, hey, no, that's not the one that suits. Let's try another one. Let's try another one. This is a continual process. It's an iterative process, and it sometimes takes weeks. It can take a fortnight sometimes for people to actually make a decision on the gem. So what we're finding here is this particular methodology of sharing images and videos is actually replacing the traditional MIMO, or what we call APRO system, whereby you actually had to send the physical gem. So working through this process using messaging systems, WhatsApp, Messenger, even Instagram from time to time, I find that that's a very practical and efficient way of sending images to designer makers so then they can forward that on to their clients. More than happy to do that. I'll continue to do that, and we'll go as long as we need to do in terms of so that the selection of the gem is in the best interest of the client and of the designer. This is a very strong example of the partnership and relationships that we have with designer makers. So it's all about building their businesses. It's all about helping them best serve their customers. And that's what we're all on about. Without that, I should say, we're nothing. It's irrelevant. We are irrelevant to the whole process if we cannot work out the fact that we are part of the designer makers' system, processes, and way of selling that gemstone to the client. So this is the methodology we use. We use it, and I think we've refined that quite well. Now, at the end of the day, sometimes the client still wishes to see the gemstone. And it depends on the circumstances, but 9 times out of 10, the gem still can be sent on MIMO or APRO, as we call it, and we'll make arrangements for that stone to be returned one way or the other if it's not selected. So I leave that right to the nth degree, so to speak, and then we find that there's generally a way through the technology in today's world for that to be accommodated. But as I say, if it doesn't work out that way, we will still go through the MIMO and APRO process. So let's go back to the website. I'm not going to go too much more into the sapphires. They're all here. I mean, I keep this up to date. I'm updating it daily, essentially. So anything purchased on the day is generally reflected on what the website is in terms of content. On occasion, I miss one, and I apologise for that. But basically, this is kept up to date pretty much as we go. We also have a more information section here, and I'll just pull that up if I can. Here we go, literature and information. And on this tab, we've got, it's loading, we've got some examples of a designer booklets that we've done. Again, this is an example of the partnership and relationship strategy, I suppose, we have with designer makers, and these booklets are able to be flicked through, and you'll see various pieces that have been made over the years by designer makers, by our clients. So here we go. There's a piece that Dana made some time ago. So these are some beautiful, beautiful pieces of jewelry that have been made over the time. 1920, and there's another edition coming out shortly. We've got our brochure up here. We've got a map of the local area of where all our gemstones are found. I live here, a little place called Yeppoon. We're in Rockhampton. We fly into Rockhampton, and then Yeppoon's right on the coast. And then we travel out in this distance here. This is about a 6-hour drive from Yeppoon to the gem fields, to the sapphire fields, and then out here is about a 17-hour drive out to the Boulder Opal area. We also have a fairly extensive library in YouTube, a YouTube channel, and it's all open for designer makers to explore. We're very happy to share imagery. If anyone wants any of our imagery, basically take the images and use them. It's in our interest and in the interest of designer makers to have access to that imagery in their own promotions, in their own works, however they feel they wish to use that imagery that we produce from our works and our mining areas. This is up to them to make that. And if there are any additional images, we've got a whole library of images as well that are made available. So this particular brochure here, I generally send out to most designer makers. You'll have seen that. Some images of myself out in the fields, traceability, sourcing stories, our practices, partnership. This fella here is Rod Beattie. He's my business partner, and you'll see him crop up often. You see him in this one here in the front. Rod's the man behind the sourcing and the cutting of Capricorn Gems. Here we go. Here, there's Rod and myself. He's the guy that's been in the business for 40 plus years. He's got the contacts with the miners. He is a master cutter in his own right, and he also facilitates our cutting of particularly the sapphires, zircons, a faceting side of things in Thailand. He's got those relationships with workshops in Thailand that we've known for over 20 years. So it's a partnership between Rod and myself. I'm much talking to him pretty well daily. So we've always got some business that we're dealing with. So from one thing and another, things are moving along. So I've been in the US 6 months. I generally spend 6 or 8 months of the year here. Rod sends material over to me. I distribute it from the US to the UK, to Europe, all over the place. In fact, I send a lot of gemstones back to Australia as well. So my Australian clients, they actually get gems that have been taken to the US and sent back to Australia. A bit peculiar. So that's a little bit of a breakdown on the site. More stories here, more information. Explore the site as much as what you like. There are certain tabs open to the general public on the site, but all of these here, all of the sale piece parts of the site, gemstones are all locked to only only members. So that's a little bit about the website, a little bit about Capricorn Gems, and a little bit about the way we see our relationship with designer makers and how we will continue to support the works of designer makers wherever they may be. I also work with a number of jewellery schools across the country, and any student designers I generally either send free of charge some gemstones to work with, or we come up to some arrangement for helping new designer makers use precious gemstones in their works rather than perhaps pieces that aren't so precious. So we think we have an obligation and a responsibility to help designer makers, particularly younger designer makers, to come into the market, to create their businesses. And again, it's part of our movement part of our strategy to strengthen those relationships with designer makers. Further to that, we do also work very closely with a select group of designer makers and provide consignment gemstones to. There are a limited number of designer makers that hold Capricorn gems, sapphires, opals, and that's a whole nother strategy. We're always open to suggestions. We're always open to approaches from designer makers who might want to work collaboratively with us from wherever across the world. And we'd be open to receiving any inquiries concerning a collaborative approach to holding some consignment pieces. So that's invitation is there. So that's, I guess, part of what a big part of what Capricorn Gems is about, and more than happy to elaborate a little bit further if people want to know more. You're more welcome to contact me on WhatsApp. I know I'm like Brian, I prefer to have a conversation and talk a little bit about what we do. Don't be afraid, make contact. We're here. We're here. We see ourselves as partners with you in your development of your businesses. Right, the next thing I want to talk a little bit about is the Ethical Gem Suppliers Group, and we did talk a little bit. Brian made some mention of this morning in his conversation, and Haywan also, and specifically I want to talk about Tucson. We have, as a group, made a decision about Tucson for next year, and I'm going to put up a link so that registrations are now open, in fact, for designer makers to register for Tucson. We've selected the dates. We've got the venue sorted. Brian was right. We're back at the Masonic Center in Tucson. We, although, are back in the main ballroom this coming year, the main venue this year, accessing off South Scott Street. So please be aware we are slightly different location, but the same premises. We're gearing up for this rapidly. We can see that Tucson's not that far away, and we're keen to see our customers back in face-to-face contact, and also new clients and new customers as well. So over the period of time, we'll be promoting this both individually, members of our group, and then collectively through our Instagram profile. So keep a watch out for it. Go to the link. If you are planning on going to Tucson, factor this into your plans, into your agenda at Tucson, because we'd love to see you again and like to spend some time with you. We had a fabulous show in Denver a couple of months ago, and met some great new people, and also other of our existing clients, and we were very happy with that event. Jamie from Balefire Goods did a fantastic job in hosting us. Thank you, Jamie. And it's quite likely we'll be back in again there next year, all things going well. We are considering also I just had to see a question there from Dana. No, Dana, the show is multiple days. If you click on that link, it'll actually show you. I can share that screen. Just bear with me a touch. I'll pull that up. Here we go. So if you look at that, you will see this is the registration screen, and you will see here select the different dates. So here are the dates: 29th, 30, 31st, and 1st. So you then select the date, 9 a.m. till 6 on each of those days. All right. So yeah. No worries. I see no need to be sorry about that at all. You just got to work through it a little bit. So yeah, we'll have this up, and it is up and running now, by the way. As I say, a bit of the detail on who will be there, and regrettably, doesn't look like Stuart's going to be making it, which is much the pity. We'd love to see him. Maybe we can still convince him. Otherwise, we'll see. But hopefully, Stuart will reconsider in his decision not to come. So that's where we're going with the Tucson show, with the Tucson Ethical Gem Fair next year. I should say, perhaps Denver again in September, and we are also having close conversations with regard to perhaps another 1 or 2 locations in the US next year as well. There are discussions happening now with other locations, and that's something that we'll release should we make decisions about that over the next period of time. So we'll have the website updated. It isn't updated yet with this registration process for Tucson next year. That'll come that'll come shortly. I should probably end up with showing a few of the pretties, and I just want to show you the calibrated sapphires. They're always lovely to see. We calibrate a whole range of central Queensland sapphires, from these little fellas up here. We call them sub 2s, and then we calibrate right through to 5.5 millimeter, and you can see the various, I'll get that light out of the way. You can see the various color systems we have: blue green, blue yellow, green yellow. So we provide designer makers with all of these colors. They're very intense colors, I guess, compared to many other sapphires. And of course, their multicolors are pretty spectacular as well. You won't find those calibrated sapphires on the website. You have to come directly to me, and again, use WhatsApp to select, to work back and forth with designer makers to determine their choices. Well, Andrea, I think that's about it from me. I'm actually finishing a bit early, but I think I've said what I need to say. And if there are any further questions, more than happy to have conversation with anyone who wants to take it up.